How's it going? Welcome back to the Salted Orange Podcast. It's been a while, we know, but we've
Yay.
had some life issues, good things and bad things. Uh, One of us got married,
Yeah.
uh, and just life happens. So, Matthew, have you missed the podcast?
The podcast, well, when we were doing it consistently, was a part of my, routine, and I got onto that. And then we stopped doing it, and it became a routine not to do it. So
I
it's nice
feel
to
the
have it
same.
back. I always like having conversations with other people about religious topics because, in my capacity and what I do, kind of hard to just talk to somebody at church about it. So having other people that I can just soundboard and stuff and information and concepts off of is great.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I've been trying to become more vulnerable at church, which is something that is hard to work when you work in the church. It's hard to be vulnerable. You
Right.
can't give your emotions off to somebody when you're just when you work for them, because then they're like, "Well, why did you say that?" And you're like, I didn't mean to." So
Yeah, there's a little bit of a different level of, and a good thing we can talk about for today's episode too, as we get into it. There's a little bit of a difference between what you can say and what you can't say in like I don't know, the clergy or other type of leadership roles in the church, that staff position in the church. That's what I'm looking for.
mhm.
Yeah, it's a little bit different because you want to be vulnerable with people, because you want an authentic church. You want to be able to converse with people and have a community, but you're also being paid, and often what you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. So be careful what you say. And the court of law in this case is the administrative councils or boards that are going to be reviewing your usability in the church. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag for people like us.
So we're happy that the podcast is back, everybody. We're gonna try to get back on a regular schedule. We haven't really discussed the regular
Yeah, we
schedule,
didn't talk
but
about that at all.
we're hoping that it comes back to a regular schedule because we talk to each other every so often, anyways. And most of the time we talk about religious stuff. So why talk about it off the podcast when we could share it with you guys?
I mean, it's literally the
So
reason we started the podcast in the first place. So all those years ago, it's been a while actually. So yeah,
so Matthew, to start off our kind of discussion, I have a question for you.
I
Do
have an
you have a
answer.
TikTok?
I do have a TikTok. I do. I
How
use
do
it
you
every week.
what do you do on your TikTok?
So my account is specifically used as a way to give a clip of a sermon that I've done, since I preach every Sunday. Um, I will edit down a clip to usually under a minute, because I think that's what works best on TikTok and short form content. So I will edit it down to that. I will post it. And that's really all I do with the account, honestly. But on top of that, it also goes on to an Instagram. It also goes on to a Facebook, and then it's shared via my church's Facebook page as well. So it's another way for me to get the sermon, what I preached about, in a bite-sized content format out to the world that might otherwise never encounter the church. Um, and it sometimes gets people talking in the comments. Other times it's just there, and likes come in or don't come in. It's social media, so that's just how that works.
So we're in a for me personally, I think we're in a digital age where a lot of people don't know uh technology as well. We have it at our fingertips, but we just don't know
Absolutely.
what we're doing with it. You know the analytics, and that's a huge word. I couldn't even unpack what analytics is for YouTube or Instagram or TikTok or one of the other social medias that there is out there. but like, um, do you think that these places are viable for like mission fields, like for like sharing your faith, or do you think that have you seen any progress in it in like your experience or in other churches?
Yeah. I 100% think that social media is a great mission field. It's a mission field specifically for younger generations. I'm talking Gen Z and after, because that's where you're gonna find people. Think about how many kids you see on TikTok. If you pay attention, they're scrolling through them, usually with an AirPod or something in their ear all the time, while they're eating food, while they're on the bus or traveling in a car. They always are listening to something for the most part. So it's a very fruitful field when you are doing it right. And that is, I think, the key for doing these and exploring these kinds of fields. Obviously, like when we were younger, it was kind of a bit different because it wasn't fully fleshed out. You had email and web pages, but you didn't really have social media in the way that we have it now. Even further back into our parents' generations and the generations before that, it was word of mouth, it was flyers, posters, events. Um, it really required putting people on the ground to go and get people to come to church or to come to events that were being held at your church or something that was going on. And I think a little bit of it now is it's just so much easier to share something on Facebook, or specifically for younger generations, share a TikTok, share an Instagram. And I think we have to approach each platform slightly differently because each platform has a different targeted audience that you're going to be looking at. And if you've studied any bit of marketing, you want to know what your audience is before you put content out there. And I'll say that the way that I do it is an easy way because I don't change anything. I literally pull from the sermon and post it. But if you were focusing on like bringing youth in, you might go to TikTok. You might do um, a different thing, a different piece of content than making a post for senior citizens on Facebook, let's say.
I personally I feel like the church is kind of uh behind in technology. Like they think they're with like the times, but like because you'll be like, oh well, we need to update our website. Well, that was like 20 years ago that you should have
Yeah.
updated your website. Like that should be something that you're doing constantly. I think the reason that denominations are having trouble with reaching those people is because the non-denominational churches have people that know marketing, know how to do online stuff, and they just know. I mean, I've seen many posts that people make, and they're flashy. And the sad thing is you have to be flashy on some of these platforms to get any kind of traction.
Well, you think about like the amount of feed that is going into, like, let's just say TikTok specifically. The amount that is going into TikToks, like it takes 30 seconds to make a video and anybody can post on TikTok. So like you are going through millions of generated content every second, hour, day, minute, and to get your church's profile out there and post out there, you have to make it so people are going to sit there and actually watch it. Because again, going back to the algorithm thing, if you are just scrolling through, they want to be able to stop their thumb on your video and not flick through it, and that gets you retention, and that post then gets put out to more people, and the cycle keeps happening, which is why we see a lot of viral things, not only on TikTok but other places as well.
I think it's so crazy how like people can blow up for like a day and then they're, you know, sometimes all you need is that one big blow up video,
Yeah.
but you have to ride that momentum. And I think a lot of people don't ride that momentum when they get it. You might have that one, you know, where you get 100 views or even 1,000 views, and you don't, you know, ride that momentum of that 1,000 views on a video or anything like that. Um, so with social media and everything, in your experience, how do you see people making it authentic, or are they just performing in these social media roles? Because I think that we're in a generation that wants more authenticity. Um, we are so afraid of being tricked because we feel like everybody is performing for somebody. So we're just looking for some little bit of authenticity. So, what is your experience with like authenticity versus like performance?
Right. And that's a great question to ask me because that is what I like to study. And I'll share with you one book recommendation about what we've been talking about, which is Followers Under 40 by Chris Sledge and Rachel Gilmore. I just finished reading that book, and it talks about how this is an untapped mission field with online and specifically YouTube and TikTok and even platforms like Twitch is in that conversation too that they talk about. So all of those things are talked about in that book. Recommend reading it if you want to look at it. And I can also talk to you about authenticity because if you do generational study or theory, you can see that our generation doesn't buy in the ways that previous generations did. Um, in the past, you could say something, and for the most part, it was taken as fact. But with the internet and people being able to post fake things or change things or not be themselves or do catfishing and the long list of many things that you can do to hide your identity online, um, it's hard for us to distinguish. It can be hard to distinguish what is real and what is fake. And I think that's just kind of the debate here with authenticity versus performance. And what are you going to really showcase in your promotions for your post and your reels and all those things? And we youth, our generation, younger, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, the betas that are coming up, they're going to want authenticity because they want a church that's real, that feels real to them. They want to find a purpose, and all youth are looking for a purpose. All of us try to find a purpose at some point in our life. So we are trying to find a reason to why do we need to be at church when I can have a community that it's outside of the church that understands me, that gets me, that wants me there in ways that the church might not. And some of that comes down to also how we perform in these. I hate saying perform when it comes to the church, but you think about any Sunday worship, it is a performance. We can crack down to that. And not because we are being fake or not real, but because we are putting on a show that is scripted and made through liturgy and worship elements, all that stuff that comes into play. But how much is the authenticity showing through in what we're doing? How much of it needs to be scripted in a way that is it just for order, or is it just for this is just a cohesive thing that we use to do the same thing every week in a slightly different way?
Yeah, I've been working a lot with some of the pastors I know that I've been talking with. We've been talking about how um, we've kind of had to flip the script on worship and getting people in the door. Like we have to start meeting them in the places that they are and not just that letting them buy in. They don't want to buy in anymore. They want to uh, show that you have some meat in the game and that you're ready to that your worship is just as authentic as theirs is. Um, and I feel like online sometimes you can see some of these influencers that it's sometimes hard to believe their story. I mean, I hate to say that because some of them probably are very spiritual, but once you see the brands that they're with or you see the different friends that they have, it's hard to believe them sometimes. I mean, part of being a Jesus follower is that you are looked at differently. And it's not that you're looked at differently like, oh, that person's, they're judging them. It's you're looked at differently like, you know, well, I want what they have. That's what everyone should be saying. So I feel like in 2026, we have a great challenge to try to make social media a better space for our churches. I've been trying to do a little bit more with posting pictures. I have quite a bit of youth at my church, but I also have a lot of older people at my church, and so we have a huge Facebook presence. And so I try to post pictures and stuff like that because I know they want to see that and comment and stuff like that. And I always tell people, I'm like, if we share the service online or if we share pictures, share them on your post. I mean, it's so easy to just hit the share button at the bottom of the post. I don't understand why it's such a big deal. We made an insert one time in the bulletin that literally had a picture of the post and then it showed where the share button was. So it just takes some effort from your church. But I definitely want to see it used more. I've talked with many of pastors that have said um, that they have had on people who have watched their service online and then came like 6 months later and were there in person. So it
Mhm.
works. A lot of people say, well, those people, the your stream is just for people who want to miss. It's an excuse for people to miss church, which is for some people it might be true, but you never know who you're reaching out there that is just shy and they don't want to be, they don't want to be scared with that first time church experience, or they were hurt from a church before. So I think there's so many avenues for it. And a lot of churches do a live stream good, and a lot of churches do a live stream terribly. Um, I was talking with with my cousin the other day, and their church puts their music online with their service and stuff, which most churches do, but they don't mix it very well, like the audio in it. And I was like, my church doesn't do a very good job with it either. Um, and it's just funny because like it sounds not as good as it would in person. And I'm like, if we just sat down for 2 seconds and mixed that audio, it would make it so much better. So I think all churches in general could do a better job with their online presence.
I agree, and I am honestly surprised that you say a lot of churches do online streaming well, because from my experience, that's not that's not the case.
I think that
I
there's a lot
see.
of non-denoms that do.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I might give you
Yeah.
that. I might give you that. Plus, it's probably stuff I'm not watching, but
Hmm.
that does it well. But I'm like looking at churches that I've experienced, and um, I did want to bring up one point that you said, and I think you can use your church's online thing as a way to, skip church. If so, that's a problem you have that you need to converse with God about, and maybe someone in your church to, hey, help me get back to being in person. But again, as you were saying, great tool, because I know there's a person from Texas who watches my church's live stream every week, comments, is faithful, donates, like is the model member for somebody online. And I always think about that, and I think about the people who are shut in, particularly with like the winter weather we've had in the last couple of months. There sometimes that's the only way that they're going to get to hear a message, and I same with all these TikToks and Instagram sharing and social media posting. Sometimes that might be the way that they hear about God for the week, and you want to be able to put that out there in case it does find them. And even when we've not had services, I like to record, even if it's just the sermon, just so they have a word and they have a scripture to look at for the week. It's not the same, but it can provide the foundation to authentic Christian worship.
So, um, I think this segues good into another question I had for you. In your um, daily life, obviously you post on your social media pretty well when it comes to sharing your faith. But how do you think that people can do it like practically with sharing online or anything like that without becoming like I used to hate when I was a kid when people would post like just a Bible verse or something like
Hmm.
that with no context to it or anything like that, and I'm like, you know, you can post scripture and that's a great way to share scripture, but people are gonna flip by that so fast. We're so um as I would say, like, we're so dead to that. Like, it just kind of floats by. Like, when you're death scrolling, as I would call it, where you're just going up and down your
Hmm.
Instagram reel or you're going up and down your YouTube reels and you're just flipping through them. That little piece of scripture is going to be flipped through so fast.
Yeah.
So, what are some practical ways that you've seen others use online to share evangelism or just like practical things in their own life and in your life that you've been using?
So I can point out many of the ways that people get people to stay on the video for more than a second. A lot of that's asking questions, but I think it ultimately comes down to authenticity and how you're in posting from the heart, not just posting to post. Like, oh, I got to post John 3:16 today. There's our scripture, by the way. So we have a scripture in the mention. Um, but it's like you see that you go, okay, well, why am I seeing this? And you're lucky if someone gets to that question of why am I seeing this before continuing their doom scroll. Um, and I think part of it is, as I said, authenticity and wanting to do it for a reason. If you have a purpose for why you're posting on social media, like specifically a church, which I think is what we're kind of leaning towards, you are doing evangelism, you're trying to share faith and beliefs with people. So sharing something like a scripture passage doesn't do anything when you need to share what that passage does for you and what it means to you. If you get in a conversation about, here's my thought on this, here's my thought on that, here's, this passage means a lot to me because it was the first passage I heard when I went to church. And that reminds me that, God's grace is always there for me and welcoming me even when I go astray. That's a great testimonial. They want to hear the testimonial, but if you're just posting to post, yeah, not really doing anything.
So, I use this. I watch this guy on YouTube that he does video game content. We both watch video game content a lot, I would assume. But I watch this one guy, and he'll every so often he'll do like a little kind of devotional for the day and kind of share his own thoughts on some scripture or something like that. And he'll do it in his like little community part of his YouTube because in YouTube they have the little community section where you can talk and stuff like that. And he'll make a post every day, and it's kind of they say when that you should share your faith, not just at church but all throughout your life. He's sharing it in his workspace even though his workspace is not a conventional workspace. I mean,
Yep.
it's not something that people would normally assume is a workspace for someone, but I think it's kind of admirable to see him doing that with this guy who probably has 2 to 6 million followers on YouTube. And so it's just so interesting to see someone bravely sharing their faith, not sharing anything controversial, like calling out people on their faith, but just sharing his own faith journey. I think when it comes to being practical, with your everyday evangelism. It's not about street preaching. I have a cousin who does it. That's his thing. I love it for him, but it's not something that I personally, would see people coming to Christ. Um, I think what people want is just for you to live your life differently, to share the light of Christ. So, I think we're in a unique situation where we both work in a church. So, um, people would think that we're sharing evangelism all the time, but still, I think you may disagree or agree with me. I think that sometimes it's hard to show evangelism even when you are in a spiritual position in a church.
Oh, absolutely. It is. And I actually had just a conversation with another pastor this week about this. Is never the first words that are out of my mouth is hi, I'm a pastor. I
Hmm.
I hold that very close until I get asked and I'm like, well, I'm not gonna lie to you. So I'm gonna tell you. And I do that because I think people speak differently to people of men of the cloth, if you will. Um, people speak differently to pastors and fathers and priests and bishops and whoever else that you want to name in the church hierarchy, um, because they see us as someone that is actively looking and trying to be as Christ-like as possible, and that's not just our goal, but it's the goal of every Christian to be as Christ-like as possible and to show that. And I like to do that and not tell who I am. One, because it puts me in some weird conversations, first and foremost, that I might not want to deal with. And then how do I get out of those is another whole other conversation we can have. Um, but mostly it's because I get to see who that person is normally. Generally, when we walk into a conversation, at least in my experience and through my studies, I've seen this, people don't need to hide themselves or don't feel the need to hide themselves. They are authentic when they come to you in the first place. But as soon as something makes them feel unsafe, and I would say knowing that you're speaking to a pastor can make you feel unsafe, or this might end up in a sermon one day, so I got to be careful what I'm doing. Uh, that becomes a different conversation. Like if you've ever seen that, or as pastors, if you've ever experienced that, you can tell the moment when the switch flips in their mind and like, oh, I got to be on my best behavior now because I'm talking to someone who comes from God. But realistically, we're doing that with everybody, aren't we?
I um it, we've talked before about kind of just us personally about dating as being a person who works in the church. It's its own
Forget about it.
hardship. Yeah, it's terrible. But just talking with some people sometimes I'll tell you one of the hardest things is people always expect you to kind of know what to say in a
Yeah,
situation.
exactly.
Like I had a friend that his brother just passed away, and like one of my friends said, "Well, you're a youth pastor, you should know what to say." I'm like, "I'm human, like I'm still not gonna know exactly what to say to this person in this situation." I think that people put so much of a
Mhm.
pressure on us as people who work in a church that uh, we are sometimes afraid to do our daily evangelism because we don't want to be pressured. We just want to live regular human lives. People forget that we're human.
Yeah.
I've had conversations with many pastors before where they say, they'll either say, "Oh yeah, my church lets me be human," or they'll say, "Oh no, I feel like I can't be human around my church people." So I definitely feel like at my church I can be human, but I still have some boundaries. Um, I've been trying to become more vulnerable with them, but I'm also still holding my cards back, as I would say. But my daily evangelism is usually it has to do with just talking to people that I don't even know. Um, I think those are my favorite people to talk to when it comes to evangelism because they don't have any preconceived notions of my life. Um, I think that a lot of people nowadays, we always come with those pre thoughts on people. So we always know their background. And we may not even know their background and just have uh, in my head what we think they are like. I always say personally, I have a very, very bad uh, tendency to overthink what people are thinking in their head. all the time. I'm like, oh, that person hated what I just said, or that person already thinks of me this way. But sometimes it's good to just come into a conversation um, with an open mind, and I think that's what people want.
Yeah. Yeah. I have two things. One, I want to share a story. And also it's part of my sermon for this week. And two, I wanted to share something I already forgot about, but I'll remember it by the time we get to it. Um, we were talking about you were talking about needing to know what to say, or that pressure to feel like you know what to need to know what to say. And this week's the lectionary reading is talking about Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead, and that has the very powerful and very short scripture of Jesus wept in it. There you go, more scripture. We're a true religion podcast here with all these scriptures coming up. But I'm going to talk about in that sermon about a time where I was at a gravesite with a family, and we had done all the prayers, we had done all the liturgy, the sermon, the eulogy. It was all done, and you're just there, and there's nothing else to say. And like Jesus, you have to be authentic in that moment, and sometimes the only thing you can do is weep with them. And it's not that we have to know what to say, but we have to connect with them in a way that shows that we understand and that we are human. And I think that example of Jesus weeping over Lazarus, even knowing what's going to happen to him in about 5 seconds when he goes, come out, and he walks out. Spoilers. Spoilers for a story that's 2,000 years old. Woo. But even knowing all that, like, he's authentic with the people there in Bethany and is emotional when you wouldn't expect that from a teacher or a rabbi in that time. And I still don't remember what the other thing I wanted to say was, but I hope that story
I'm
is
actually
helpful.
doing a study of. We just finished it up. It was a book on Bethany, because I had never really looked at Lazarus's life and stuff like that, and it showed kind of how the blessing that Lazarus got was also um, a burden on him because he was the spectacle. He was the spectacle. I mean, uh, our daily walk with Christ doesn't mean that we're going to be um, not burdened from the world. So my advice to people for sharing the gospel to others is just be authentic and don't be afraid. I said this to the other day to one of my friends who's a pastor. I said it's sad that when we leave church on Sunday morning, we're not excited to tell people about what we just experienced the day before. Uh, in my opinion, you should be so excited about your church sermon or your worship or whatever you had that day before that you want to tell the person that the next person you see, even if they go to another church, you could still tell them that your worship was nice. When I come home every day, I tell my aunt who goes to a different church, I tell her, well, my service was great today. And then I tell her what we talked about and stuff like that. And it just shows that like I'm open to sharing what I just learned and that I'm recharged because we go to church to recharge. It's not we don't go for the reward, we go for the recharge so that way we can uh, do life outside of the church.
Yeah, it's an outpost in a mission field for sure. For sure. And I think part of the point I was making with the story and Jesus weeping is that authenticity is going to be key. I think that's been a general theme of this whole podcast is the most authentic you can be is the better you're going to be at, conveying the gospel, conveying Jesus Christ to other people because God was a human with us at one point. And we have to recognize that God knows all the human condition. God made that. So we have to recognize that God will understand what we're going through and Not everything is going to be all easy and the highlights that you're going to want to post on your feed, but the other things, the bad stuff, the down times, they're also going to be a part of that as well.
I just I've had so many conversations with people. That's one of my favorite things to do when it comes to uh, talking about Christ. Even if I sound like an idiot, I still want to have those conversations. I've said before on the podcast that my goal has been to always be able to speak to my friends about my faith and about my denomination. Um, and so it's just nice to have a conversation with people and with you, obviously, because we love having this podcast. It's a great way for us to unwind and kind of talk about our experiences. Because I feel like if you are not talking about your faith, then you're obviously not living it out. Um, you may be a silent warrior, which I've seen them before, but it's very hard to not see a person of faith just outflowing with it, like with what they do, what they talk. Um, if you see somebody who's excited about it, they're definitely going to be outflowing it in any possible way they can.
Yeah,
So,
I definitely agree with that. I just talked
so what
about
is
that last week's sermon, actually.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. I watched your sermon. Uh, so to circle back to our like sharing the gospel in 2026, what are some of your like personal or church goals in your 2026 journey?
Oh, like 100% of them is social media. And just getting that better. You talked earlier about how churches are behind in social media, and I went, "Yeah, it's because we have a Facebook page. That's enough." No, that's not enough. That reaches a specific demographic, and you have to think about how you're how that's playing through. And it works. It's great for the adults and the old people in the church. No offense to you people, but the younger kids don't want that. They want their own stuff. Like you got to reach them too. And I've been talking since I've been at this appointment about what does our social media presence look like, and there's so many churches I feel like that are just understaffed in that department. Like it's honestly a full-time job in and of itself,
Mhm.
beyond the requirements of an administrator or a pastor, both of which probably have little to no training in that field unless it was something they picked up on a hobby. So it really needs somebody who's going to be good at directing that, but also somebody who's spiritually led at the same time. And I think finding that balance is and can be a lot. And I tell my church all the time, it's like I can do this for you, but you're taking me out of something else because I can't just keep loading my plate and loading my plate until I, you know, end up regurgitating it all because I can't take any more of it. Like there's things that have to give if you want a certain person to, like your pastor, to be involved in this. Like okay, so maybe I'm not, I don't know, doing this or that, or maybe I'm not attending this thing. Maybe we have somebody who picks up a Bible study instead of a pastor leading it or something like that. That's a great example. But we have a lot on our plates, and I see a lot of pastors working themselves to death and wondering why they are doing that to themselves a lot. um, which is a whole nother conversation that we can have as
Yeah.
well.
Uh,
Uh,
my so my personal goal is to have more of a social media presence in my own life, along with my church life. But because I feel like we can do our own evangelism on our own social medias, but we can also do it on our church ones as we work
mm,
in churches. But um, I just want to be more authentic than just posting scripture. I mean, that used to anger me so much as a kid. I'd see people that I went to school with, and I already knew that they did not live and this will be judgmental of me, but I didn't feel like they lived the Christian life or whatever they claimed to, but didn't. And they would post that scripture, and I'd be like, "Are you really living out what you just posted? Like, did you actually read the scripture that you just posted, or are you just posting it because it's a trend or it's something you wanted to do?"
Yeah. And I
So,
think the other side of, so I said it's mostly 100% social media. The other side of that is really working on how we do that and doing it well, because you're talking a lot about what is coined slacktivism, or that culture where you just post things and expect people to come. That is the same way we approach worship in the church and approach getting people into the church. We say, hey, we're doing this thing, come. And we expect them to come. And what happens? No one
they don't.
comes.
Mhm.
But you said it earlier. It's like we really need to go out there and evangelize in such a way that we don't ask them to come, but we go to them, give them the word out in the world, whether that's actually preaching the word through street gospel preaching, or just showing them the way of Christ through how we act with others. And I think that is the pivotal thing with these authenticity in our post is like, yeah, when I look at a church, I go, okay, are you wanting, and I talked about this in my sermon last week, so that's why it's on my head. Are you being a church that wants people to come into the church because you want to fill your pews, you want to increase your membership roll, you want to have more money coming into the church? Is that what the people are to you? Or are you coming to church and inviting people to church because you have a true community that holds each other in ways that we don't see often in this world?
Yeah, we got to have that accountability, as I say. I'm not saying accountability about like we got to judge other people. We got to have accountability of like that person needs help. We need to help them up.
Yeah.
We should want a common goal. Um, I've heard a pastor recently say that a good way to lead the world really wants to help people. I mean, you see all these different charities and people give money like it's going out of style. I mean, if you see like Mr. Beast or any of these other big YouTubers that do these big charities, they raise
Mm-hmm.
all this money. I mean, people just want to give money away. Like it's crazy. But um they just don't want to be affiliated with something that is not authentic and not a way to really feel like they're living like Christ. So churches need to go back to just wanting to help the world and not specifically wanting to uh, make followers of Christ.
Yeah. Wanting
We'll
to
make
help the
them. We'll
world,
make them
not
on the
wanting to help
journey.
yourself.
Yes, exactly.
That's the phrase I hear a lot. And I
So,
think it's true when we look at the difference between a church that looks inwardly and outwardly. And
hmm
we you want your church to do well. I'm not gonna
yeah,
deny that. Like you want, yes, I see that a lot of the statistical stuff that happens within the church is what evidence of the fruit of the spirit working and people coming and people wanting to be baptized and become members and so on and so forth, and like ministries booming, all those things is great to show that you are growing and that things are going well, but also they distract us from what we really need to be doing, and that's making connections, not to get people to come, but to make connections because we are connectional people that need to help people connect with Jesus in a way that's not always done in a church.
it's a fine line, as I say. But well, this has been a pretty good episode. I feel like
Yeah, I mean,
we've had good conversation. For us, being on hiatus for so long, we're definitely not the best at social media when it comes to this podcast.
no,
But that's something that we're probably personally working on. and we're excited to bring the podcast back. This just started with a conversation between both of us and said we just need to get that podcast back going.
Yeah. We both wanted it,
because
and it's just
it's a good way to. It's my
crazy.
own personal evangelism. I don't know if you feel the same way, but it's just a way for me to share my own personal experiences.
Yeah, I feel the same way with what I said earlier. If it reaches one person, it's doing its job. And
Hmm.
amidst all the other stuff that's out there, this is some good, hopefully, to someone that can shed some light into religion and faith and all that good stuff.
And don't think we're the experts.
No.
We're just two guys who are going through their own journeys in faith. You guys might have different experiences, but you can let us know your experiences in the comments. I would say probably the questions that you guys could answer for us is what is your social media or goals for 2026 with your online presence? And how do you guys evangelize in your normal day? Because I'd like to hear some ways that people are spreading the gospel.
I'd like to hear some of them old church testimonies. Yeah. But it's outdated. We need to bring that back. Like it was a good part of the church. We need to bring that back.
What, where you stand up at the back?
One. I'm
you
not
say,
going on until you
yeah,
have one.
yeah. I've been to a couple churches like that. It's definitely an experience. But well, Matthew, do you have any final thoughts for the listeners?
I think we've covered everything that I could think of to say. I'm sure I could come up with something else, but I don't want to waste time. And I've always been a person about getting to my point and being done. So I'm going to stop talking now.
Well, thank you guys for listening. We're gonna hopefully try to have a better schedule with this.
I'm gonna say monthly.
Been,
I'm gonna say month. That's what I'm gonna shoot.
oh,
for.
I'm hoping we can do better than that. I'm hoping we can do. I would say weekly, but I don't know if this man could do it weekly.
Oh, I don't think I can do it weekly.
But let us know if you guys would like to hear it weekly. We'll try to change our schedules around. But thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you later.
And also let us know if you don't want to hear us, because that's interaction and that boosts our podcast in the algorithm. So thank you. Got him.
We'll see you later.